Greetings, Temple Beth Shalom, Rabbi Boxed here with Parashat HaShavua. This week we have a double portion. We have Parashat Matot, which is Numbers 30, verse 2 through 32:42, and Parashat Masei, Numbers 33, 1 through 36:13. So we'll look at them each in this video. So Matot, vows and vengeance. That's the underlying theme here. The outline is internal life of the Israelites, instructions regarding vows and oaths. 2, external relationships, revenge against the Midianites. And then 3, negotiating settlements, provisions for tribal territory east of the Jordan. And so the Matot begins with instructions regarding vows and oaths, that Moses is preparing the Israelites by instructing their leaders. The word matot here is translated as tribes, which also means staffs, and stands for a person's authority. So we have all these different kinds of vows: a woman's vow or oath uttered in her father's house, a vow to God, if a woman makes a vow of assuming an obligation. We are talking about all different kinds of vows that specifically relate to a man making a vow and also a woman making a vow. A widow's or divorced woman's vow or oath, and lots of discussion based on a married woman's vow or oath. Then we have this idea of external relationships, revenge against the Midianites. And so I'm just going to read a little bit of the commentary here. Numbers 25 describe an episode of Baal Peor in which Israelite men were prostituting themselves with Moabite women. Such an allegation seemed to involve sexual acts in combination with foreign worship, not merely sex outside the boundaries of marriage. God, at that point, cast a plague upon the community, but Phinehas the priest, placated God by driving a spear through the copulating bodies of an Israelite man and a Midianite woman in front of the tent of meeting. He thus brought an end to the plague. In our Parsha, God now commands Moses to punish the Midianites for that earlier incident at Baal Peor. So this war against the Midianites literally goes back to last week's portion when the Israelites are influenced by the Midianites to copulate outside of their community, but also to bow down to their gods. And there's a very specific revenge against Midianite women. Moses becomes enraged because the troops do not kill the Midianite women. Because in Moses' opinion, they were the ones who caused the Israelite men to go astray from God. So in effect, he commands them to kill all but the young virgin girls. It's a very interesting storyline here. So then after all of this is done, there, of course, there's the aftermath, the purification, and the distribution of the spoil. So the purification rituals, and then who gets what from what they were able to take from the Midianites. Then, of course, we have this negotiation for tribal territory east of the Jordan. This is one of my favorite stories, favorite little areas, and favorite little, we'll call stories, whatever, inside the Hebrew Bible. The Reubenites and the Gadites owned cattle in very great numbers. The lands of Jazer and Gilead were a region suitable for cattle. So they go to the leadership of those two tribes go to Moses, and they say, and Eleazar the priest, the land that Adonai has commanded or has conquered for the community of Israel is cattle country, and your servants have cattle. It would be a favor to us if this land were given to your servants as a holding. Do not move us across the Jordan with the rest of the Israelite community. And Moses responds by saying, wait a minute. Your brothers are going to war and you would rather stay back here in this land and not help? And they respond to Moses, we will build here sheepfolds for our flocks and towns for our children. And we will hasten as shock troops in the van of the Israelites until we have established them in their home, while our children stay in the fortified towns because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until the Israelites, every one of them, are in possession of their portion. But we will not have a share with them in the territory beyond the Jordan, for we have received our share on the east side of the Jordan. And a reason that I particularly like this story here is because think about Moses' promise from God. God says, you will see the promised land, but you will not be able to enter its promised land. And yet, two of the tribes say our promised area is here, where Moses is. So did Moses get to actually go into the promised land? Was God tricked, or did God know what God was doing? It's a very interesting conundrum, if you will. So now we move on to Masei, the journey's end. It's a review of Israel's travels through the wilderness, remembering the journey, preparing for the future, securing land and limits for Zelophehad's daughters, and then the conclusion. Now, I'm going to go to the conclusion part of Masei because I think that it's really, I think it's important to focus specifically on the end here, the conclusion of this particular portion. And what we get is 36:13. The conclusion to the book of Numbers not only marks the conclusion of the journey to the promised land. The plains or the steppes of Moab will be the setting for the book of Deuteronomy, the place where Moses will pronounce his last teachings before he dies. The concluding statement specifies that God is the source of the last group of laws that Moses teaches, and is Ele hamitzvot v'hamishpatim asher tziva Adonai b'yad Moshe el b'nei Yisrael ba'aravot Moav al Yarden Yericho. These are the commandments and regulations that Adonai enjoined upon the Israelites through Moses on the steppes of Moab at the Jordan near Jericho. And we come to the end of the book of Numbers, and we say Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek, as we enter into the book of Deuteronomy next week. Shabbat Shalom.